Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm hoping to bring more clarity on the topic of codependency. This is not my first video addressing codependency. Several months back, I did a viewer requested video, and I have a playlist entitled viewer requested video if you would like to find that on defining codependency. Okay, so you can go ahead back and view that video. All right. But either way, a lot of times survivors are uncertain and they're not sure, are they a codependent? Is the person that they are associated with, in a relationship with, a codependent? So I want to give you 5 tips, or basically 5 areas to consider when making this determination, okay? And if you're finding that all of these areas, you're having an issue with, or the other person, minimally, we can say that they have codependent tendencies, or they have a codependent nature about them, which means they are more than likely are a codependent, okay? All right, so let's go down the 5 things. Number 1 on my list is a codependent will either have a very high wall up, or they will have no boundaries at all, okay? They would either have walls up like crazy, or they will have no boundaries at all. All right. And why would the codependent have the walls up? Well, chances are, a lot of times, and it's stemming from childhood, this codependent has experienced a lot of abuse, and that, of course, would create that mistrust to human nature, or basically human beings. So they would have those walls up. And then on the flip side, that abuse would either create the walls being put up, or it would create no boundaries at all, as the abuse has basically broken them down to a place where they have been trained not to have these boundaries, and that becomes a norm for them. Okay? So that's one area to take a look at there. And you're going to find with the 5 things that I'm saying that there could be opposite ends of the spectrum. Like I said, having the walls up, or not having any boundaries at all. Okay. The next thing on my list is moderation. Most codependents have an issue with moderation. And I'm going to go ahead and explain that and how that plays out. When you have no boundaries, or even if you have the walls up, you're off balance here. So when you have no boundaries, this would allow something like a love bomb phase to be successful every time with you, because someone will be able to come into your life and penetrate it in 1 second and go from 0 to 1,000 with you, right? So there's no moderation when you're moving at those type of pace, And I'm not going to sit here and act like there aren't times when you're not a codependent and you get together and a relationship just takes off like a rocket. Everything just falls into place, so to speak. But usually when we're talking about this moderation, and particularly in a love bomb phase, there's one person that's pushing the pace. And then there's going to be another person that's submitting to that, or allowing it to happen. Maybe the relationship would not have been going at that pace had the other person not been pushing it, but because the other person has such weak boundaries is why it's going that way. It's like you're being passive. You're not really participating as yourself. You are participating in the light that they want you to participate. It's what they want. You're just following along with that. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about with moderation. And then, of course, on the flip side of it, when someone has a wall up, they're bypassing opportunities altogether. So that's the opposite end of not having that moderation. So codependent natured people tend to have an issue with that moderation. Okay. And this lack of moderation, also leads to addictions in that codependent's life. And this is how, a drug addict, an alcoholic, sex addict, overeating, gambling. These are, some examples. And what do they all have in common? Is an access of something. So yet again, that theme of moderation being exposed here, where they don't have that lack of control. And again, going back to the lack of boundaries stemming from the walls up, because it's both going on. Because even if a person has that lack of boundaries, there's a wall up somewhere. They're blocked somewhere. And that's, what I mean by that. The next thing that I have here on my list is codependent. They have issues with their own feelings as far as their self-awareness of their own feelings, okay? They're oftentimes too entangled into other people's feelings, other people's projections, other people's thoughts, okay? And that is the dominant thought in their mind, not how they feel. And it, on the extreme end, they may be completely out of touch. If someone's asking them how they feel, they're really channeling someone else's feelings. And those are the feelings that are setting inside of them and running their behaviors and their actions. So, that leads to someone that's basically out of touch at that point. Basically out of touch. So as you're noticing me going down this list, I'm giving you the areas, but I'm giving you one end of the spectrum and another end of the spectrum. And the reason being is because narcissists are codependent, and the survivors were at one point codependent as well. And that's why that relationship was able to mesh together and work. They're both two codependents, but the codependency plays out differently. Now, the narcissist is detaching from their feelings, and so is the survivor when they were in that relationship. The narcissist is oftentimes detaching from the feelings because of guilt and shame, and that's why they're creating those masks. And the survivor was doing it at that time because out of a need to be accepted. They wanted to be accepted, chances are. So they're going to be overly concerned with other people's feelings because they want that person to like them and accept them. Okay, so the root of that issue is abandonment and rejection. So one is heavily rooted in guilt and shame, and the other one rooted in abandonment and rejection. Okay, so that self-awareness to their feelings, there's a detachment there. Okay, now the next thing or the area, often a codependent is going to think they are better than or less than. So yet again, two ends of the spectrum. Typically the narcissist, is going to feel like they are better than. And then typically that survivor in the relationship felt like they were less than. And this allows them to be able to accept the crumbs and less than, to settle, basically, to accept the abuse, to accept the inconsistencies, the lies, the manipulation, to make excuses for the abuser, to downplay and minimize their behaviors. because they've typically been in cycles of being taught somewhere down the line, usually in childhood, that they were less than or they don't deserve better. And they acclimate to that. And that suits the personality of the narcissist, who wants to feel like they are better than, to compensate for their deep-rooted insecurities. Okay? So that's another area. Now, the fifth thing that I have here on the list is self-care. Codependence. This makes sense when you're taking into account everything else. If this person is detached from their feelings, how are they going to be able to care for themselves very well if they are detached from themselves? Emotionally and psychologically detached. How can they even receive the communications from within if they're too externally focused, if you will? So then now we have an issue with self-care. And then oftentimes the survivors, they have a hard time putting themselves on a pedestal, looking at themselves as a king or a queen, looking at themselves as someone who deserves the best. And then oftentimes, they won't. They're not treating themselves very well. They may go out and buy lavish gifts for everyone else and buy secondhand things for themselves, or put off something that they really want over and over and over, helping everyone else but themselves, not taking care of themselves. And even the self-care that's done out of vanity, which is typically what the narcissist is doing, is for shallow purposes. So when we're getting shallow, are we really getting to the self at that point? Or are we just taking care of the self-care of the mask that we want to present to society and, the people that we are interacting with? So it's still not self-care. They're not doing shadow work on themselves. So it's not the true deep-rooted self-care, like getting to the root of things, really making that change. All right. So I wanted to point out these 5 areas that you can consider within yourself, or, other people. You may be your family, friends, lovers, husbands, spouses, and you can determine, am I a codependent? Do I have codependent tendencies? Do I have work in this area? Do they have work in this area? A little checklist, a simple checklist that you can go down. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and list these 5 areas again. Okay. So, there will be high walls or no boundaries at all. That's number 1 on my list. Number 2, there'll be an issue with moderation in that person's life. Number 3, there will be less of a self-awareness or a disconnect to their feelings. All right. And number 4, self-care will not be evident or apparent, or will certainly be lacking. Okay. And then number 5, they will think they are better than others. That's going to be on a very superficial, shallow end. Or they will feel like they are less than. And that's, of course, deep-rooted, both of them, in insecurities and low self-esteem. Okay, so hopefully this video is helping someone else understand codependency a little further. The good news is this is not a death sentence to anyone. You can, cure yourself from codependent natures, particularly if you are non-narcissistic. you know, and willing to expose yourself and be bare and naked about these areas of yourself. So it's basically, are you willing to be honest with yourself so that you can work on these areas? Okay. The narcissist, you know, they like to wear the mask. They like to run from themselves. So it's incredibly hard for them to heal that aspect of themselves. And so they stay in that shadow, in that darkness, and it only festers and grows within them, because the way that narcissism is set up, you know, it's not about facing yourself at all. Okay. So take what you can from this and, you know, continue to educate yourself. I have almost 500 videos on this channel at this point to help you understand narcissistic abuse, help you understand psychology, help you, you know, understand yourself better. Okay. Help you increase your emotional maturity, help you make better relational decisions, and then some. I do run a support group, guys, over on Facebook for survivors of narcissistic abuse. That information is below all of my videos. Just hit that link and inbox me and let me know that you are a survivor. All right. I do one-on-one coaching. I do offer that through voice calls, FaceTime, Skype, email coaching. I recently offered or am offering mobile texting support as well. You know, that's a great asset. You can text Coach Lakia instead of that narcissist breaking your no contact, or if you feel like you have no one else to trust, you know. All right, I have a Patreon, guys. It's a happy medium between my YouTube, which is free, and my website, which has the personalized one-on-one. You can get services through me, through Patreon, and save some money there. All right, so you can go look at the different memberships, monthly memberships that are available and what comes with them. All right, with that being said, I will be uploading exclusive content to Patreon as well. You know, I put on my videos on YouTube. They will be available on Patreon as well, but I have extended videos on Patreon that will never come on YouTube. And they will give you, you know, extra advice. All right. You can pay per video to get access to that information, or you can do, it comes with some of the monthly memberships. Okay. As well. You can also, on my website, lakiacrawford.com, take a look at the books that I've written, the No Narc Zone merchandise that I have available as well, where you can make your statement against narcissistic abuse and have fun with your fashion. All right. Great ways to support the channels, guys, is always to like the videos, subscribe to the channel, of course, hit the bell so that you'll be notified when I upload videos, which is quite frequently. Leave a comment. These type of things help push YouTube's algorithm, and it helps push the video out and the content. All right. So if you feel like this is information that needs to be shared more, definitely be interactive on my channel. With that being said, guys, continue to do the work. All right. And until next time, please take care.